Welcome to the Everyday Citizens Tactical Podcast, episode 26, Drones and Civilian Use. My name is Jeremy and I will be your host. Today I'm joined by the Communications Workspace, or at least as he's known on Instagram, to discuss various topics in regards to drone use by the prepared or tactical civilian. So, hide your credit cards, but take out your note-taking gear as we dive into the world of drones.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours. Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody, and comms. Welcome to the podcast.
So, man.
So you have been brought on for the specific topic of drones tonight, and I think probably most of the people listening to this are aware of the, really the benefits and then even like the risks of drones just from watching tons and tons and tons of footage, from the war in Ukraine right now.
Yeah, it's definitely an important topic. I think it doesn't get discussed enough. Doesn't get posted about enough, I don't think.
Honestly, what surprises me, and I can only take on so many hobbies at once, but the little that I've looked into drones, I don't think the entry market is as bad as people think it may be.
Yeah, it is a little pricey. I mean, I guess that's relative, but definitely a little bit pricey to get into, and then trying to figure it out. Obviously DJI with its security concerns, you got to figure out like how to get around it. But yeah, price is relatively it's cheap for cheap enough.
Sure. And really for the use that we're kind of talking about with drones, you don't need a drone that's multi-thousands of dollars. You almost need one that's like kind of expendable in a sense. Because like the possibility of you losing your drone to weather, to it just kind of dying out on you, somebody shoots it out of the sky, like anything like that, like the possibilities of you losing your drone is relatively high.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Wind can take it, or if you have a fly off, which that's happened to me, a drone just flies off. It's good to have components and a backup drone, or cheaper components that you could just build another drone and get it up in the air for sure.
Now, I don't know, but is in the 3D printer world right now, are they on the drones yet?
Yeah, so I printed a couple frames, but so the problem with 3D printed frames is just the fragility and the plastic. It's not as good as, the carbon fiber cut.
Sure.
And and like the vibrations with the motors and everything, it's just a lot weaker, more susceptible to just breaking. And then obviously when you crash, that frame's probably going to explode, which is why CNC, the carbon is so much better.
Sure. At least there's the potential possibly to, I guess, print replacement parts if the market has either been shut down or limited, or it's just no longer available due to, whatever type of catastrophe is going on.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you can definitely print, protective parts to protect the carbon fiber as well. I think 3D printing and drones definitely go hand in hand. If you're gonna get into FPV, freestyle drones, stuff like that, definitely getting a 3D printer is gonna save you a lot of headaches.
So before we get into where to start with drones, the entry points, so on and so forth, I guess I ask you, why drones? What got you interested in drones, and why have you kind of taken that on as your kind of niche in a sense, as far as trying to spread awareness to everybody else in the community?
Yeah, so I got into drones. I was just watching some freestyle videos. I think it was 2017. There's like some Vice article or something. Dudes flying through the trees, and they were like, comparing it to like pod racing or whatever. And it just looked cool. Just these guys sitting in chairs, but they were flying these drones around buildings and stuff. I thought that was super cool. So 2017, got a whole kit. It was a decent amount of money back then, and like for what you get, like it would be maybe a couple $100 nowadays. But just it was was the equipment available at the time. So bought that, built my drone, had a bunch of frustrations getting it up, and just I basically tore that thing apart and put it back together, and was flying in the sim, and I kind of set it down for a little bit. But I noticed that back in I think it was 2017 was when Ukraine was using the old DJI Phantoms.
Hmm.
Didn't realize that with Russia invading Ukraine and all that, the freestyle, the FPV drones would be relevant and coming back like this. So really, I got back into it. I think 3 years ago, just COVID, but got back into it, built out some drones and stuff, and was messing with it again, and then just been tinkering with it, and then here we are, 2023, and we see FPV kamikaze drones all over the place.
Hmm.
DJI. I want to say Ukraine is going through 10,000 drones a month. Don't quote me on that, but
Wow.
it's significant. Yeah, the amount of drones that are just being expended, like you were talking about earlier, it's just crazy. But like, I think it's important for a lot of people to definitely have access to it,
Hmm.
and learn on that stuff.
Now, I would say that probably the way that Ukraine specifically has been using drones, not necessarily the kamikaze style drones that Russia's been using, but like the smaller, more man operated drones. I don't think that that is a sustainable way of using drones. Like it's easy for Ukraine to just burn through thousands of drones while the West is still providing them with everything. But I think from our perspective, from the American citizen perspective, we're not going to have that type of luxury.
Yeah, I agree. They're just burning through components, and like it is economical for them. With a $500 FPV drone, with battery and they could spend $500 on this payload delivery, not including the payload, and then hit a $1 million tank. Like economically, it makes sense. But
Hmm.
I agree with you. Like the components, if you're just going through components like that, I I assume that's going to drive the price of components up, and it'll eventually get unsustainable.
Sure.
But
And I would
yeah,
imagine that a lot of those parts for these smaller, cheaper drones is coming from someplace like either China, Vietnam, Taiwan. I'd imagine it's coming from that corner of the world.
yeah, it 100% is. And like, because iFlight, I know I post about iFlight a lot because they have a good beginner drone. But iFlight is straight out of China.
Hmm.
DJI is out of China. Uh, the let's see, Fat Shark HD0, those are in Walksnail even. Those headsets come out of China.
Hmm.
Just it's like everything is pretty much Chinese. I think HD0 is kind of away from China. Like they're the least Chinese, but they
Hmm.
still have China.
Sure.
Like it's yeah.
So where do you, I guess, in the realm of all of this, as far as surveillance, equipment targeting, whatever it might be, where do you kind of specifically see the drone and the drone operator role fitting into, again, like the American citizen position or the community defense style what kind of purpose does the drone fit there?
Yeah, so I guess I was kind of working backwards with my FPV drone and trying to work it into, because like that's what I have, and then trying to fill the observation drone. I feel like so drones in general for sure. Observation. They're obviously using it for emergencies, and there's a lot bigger drones that if a person's lost, search and rescue. Use drones for that. But then if we're talking tactical or self defense, just a smaller area, probably just observation, information collection. Not only information collection, but then you could also throw in there. I think Mark III, 'cause he's doing signals collection. Just any type of collection that you could think of.
Hmm.
Um, and then also, I mean, obviously we have these various payload deliveries. It doesn't have to be explosive. It could be some kind of comms jammer. It could be repeater, something. It could be delivering something to a
Hmm.
physical area. But I think the uses are endless. And then the quad came around, but now I'm looking back at the fixed wing. Fixed wing is going to give you longer loiter times and
Hmm.
be able to keep that observation longer. But it depends on your environment too. Do you want fixed wing for the larger open environments, and then do you want the quad where there's more vegetation, stuff like that? Do you need the optical zoom for more standoff, or are you good flying nap of the earth? So but yeah, drones in general, I wouldn't say that they're critical, but they
Hmm.
are definitely a capability.
Sure.
And especially, these guys running enterprise drones with thermal, IR, all that stuff. You can see from kilometers away. It's crazy.
Yeah, for me specifically here in Kentucky, pretty much everybody I know that's running drones, they're running the quads. It's just too vegetated, like you said. It's very very dense hills, so the elevation is constantly changing and whatnot. So you kind of need that maneuverability aspect of it all to really um, get good use out of your drone. But what really surprised me when guys started bringing around drones was how great the camera quality is, even from, you know, I'd say 500-600 feet in the air. I mean, it's phenomenal.
Oh yeah, DJI, for sure. I mean, like with all of their negatives, the camera is definitely there, and not necessarily the optical zoom, but still just the digital zoom. It's still so clear.
Hmm.
I want to say it's like a 4K camera, but yeah, definitely like you can get significant standoff with that thing. And I know, I mean, Ukraine's using the Mavic Breeze, so they've got to be good.
So where, if someone were to come to you and they're trying to get into the drone world, where do you tell them to start as far as kind of on the cost spectrum slash what your I guess what your result may be getting out of it? Where's that good ground to kind of set your footing?
Yeah, it always starts off, what is your situation? What's the environment that you're operating in? And then with that, what are you trying to do with it? Um, are you trying to, do you care about the security concerns with the DJI systems? Um, and do you want to have to worry about maintenance? Because, FPV drones take a lot of maintenance, but you can also maintain those systems yourself, whereas DJI, you got to send it off. So that's kind of like where I start. It's like, do you have those concerns? And then also, I don't have much experience with Parrot or Autel, but those are also very valid. Uh, I think with any drone viewer system, though, like it's going to be able to see any of those proprietary drones. Uh, with the FPV drone, there are ways where you can turn that telemetry off via, a switch on the radio. And when I say radio, the controller that you have, you could flip that switch, turn the telemetry off. Obviously, you lose all that on-screen display. If you had latitude, longitude, and your battery level, just all that stuff that you use while flying, you lose it. But you also turn off your telemetry and kind of go stealthy.
Mhm.
So to reel it all back, start with the situation. What are you trying to do, and then also what's your environment like. Maybe a fixed wing is more in your realm. Maybe a quad isn't the right move. But quads are. I feel like quads are easier. So I tell people, hey, start with a quad.
Mhm.
Um, and then just when they're starting out, the people that do go the FPV route, start with a radio, start with you have to have a computer obviously, but start with the sim and just figure out if you like flying that way. If you don't like the FPV drone, then you're only out the radio, um, and then you can just go buy a DJI or Parrot or Autel or something. Um, and it's not that much sunk cost. But then, starting with the radio before the drone, now you're prepared. You figure out what drone you want, what you're trying to do with it. Do you need a bigger long range drone? Do you want more of a freestyle drone? like a 5-inch that's a little bit thicker frame, less flight time, but can take a hit while you're learning. It's kind of like figuring out what glide path you want. If you want to dive right into the $1,000 long range drone and take that risk and just assume that you're the best pilot ever, or if you want, that freestyle drone, figure out how to move it around. And then another crossroad you come to is, what video system do you want? Do you want the DJI video system, which, there's significantly less security concerns with DJI's FPV system, but do you want to go with that, or do you want to go with the HD0 walk snail analog route, which then you gotta pick between those three, and it all comes down to money. But what I've noticed a lot of dudes doing with the FPV route is going HD0 and walk snail, just because the HD0 can go analog as well. But walk snail, just because the quality is comparable to DJI, I don't think people realize beforehand how crappy analog video is until they get it, and then they're like, oh crap, I can't see anything with analog, and then they update to walk snail. So it's just like there's a lot of crossroads, a lot of decision points whether you want to go, with what drone.
What is, and again, it varies heavily by what type of drone you're going to get, environment, so on and so forth. But what is a price range someone should expect to be getting into the drone game with a quality drone? It doesn't have to be the best drone, but just a quality starting drone. What kind of price range are you looking at?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're looking at DJI Autel or Parrot, about $1,500 to $2,000. Definitely the Mavic's great. The Mini is just not enough, I don't think. But I mean, if you want the Mini, if you want to be able to run it on your kit, you're not worried about the security concerns, or you run scripts, then the Mini's the one for you. You've done the analysis. For FPV, I would say about $1,000. That'll get you the radio, the controller, the drone, and the FPV headset, and like at a decent quality. I recommend that most dudes start off with an analog headset that you can plug that walk snail into. The HD0 headset's gonna be significantly more. I think it's still going for 700 something. And then you can get, like, the drone's honestly the easiest part starting out, because you just get a bind and fly, and that cuts down cost significantly. I think you can get, if you start off flying with analog just to learn, you can get a quad for about $300. That's a good starter for like a 5-inch, like a sizable quad.
And I'm glad you brought up the Mini, because I know a lot of guys rock the Mini quad, and I think it kind of depends on what is the true purpose of what is your drone truly trying to accomplish? Because I think there's kind of two aspects for it. You have, like what you said with the Minis, guys just trying to run it off their kit. They're probably like a line squad, a platoon, whatever it might be. Think of the small unit that's just trying to do immediate area kind of surveillance in a sense. Then you have the other side, which is probably the bigger, more expensive, more advanced drones, and you're really kind of creating more of a dedicated S2 essence to your operation, or a more detailed reconnaissance element to your what you got going on. What are your thoughts on that, as far as the small ground unit versus like the intelligence side?
Yeah, so, and like if we're talking the intelligence side, everything's a sensor, so those smaller drones getting it up, it may be a little more limited, but and I do wish, like, seeing the military, they run Black Hornets at the small tactical level, so that's comparable to the Mini. So if every squad had a Black Hornet, then we're talking the self-defense side, if every Minuteman squad should have, mini or some kind of sensor if they have it available. I would say upgrade that to the Mavic just because, uh, with smaller groups, smaller people, like, and this is just an assumption, I guess, on my part, but the Minutemen groups are going to be a lot smaller. If it's just you and a couple buddies trying to make sure that, big organizations aren't, coming after you or trying to come into your community, you're going to be doing more with less people, and those capabilities. You're probably going to want that Mavic. You're probably going to want that extended range, and as many sensors as possible, and like, and kind of with comms too. Like, from my perspective, I've seen smaller Minutemen groups, and I think like they don't have the comfort of having an RTO just because they just don't have enough dudes. So it's going to be one dude doing a decent amount of work, and so that's kind of where, and they also might be covering much larger areas, whereas a conventional military force is going to be localized. They're going to have a lot more people per square mile than any Minuteman defense group or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, manpower definitely plays a big part into it, and that's kind of some of the stuff here at ECT we're diving into and kind of starting to shape our content around, is developing specific roles for groups like as they grow. Because if you think about it, if you look like a traditional line unit to some extent, there's a lot of things that are consistent, at least in today's conventional military. You have somebody that's a medic, whether it's a combat medic in the Army or a corpsman in the Marine Corps / Navy. You have automatic riflemen or machine gunners, even on the civilian side now, with companies starting to build AR, LSW style builds. The thought of the automatic rifleman, can come into fruition of the Minutemen. You've got your radio operator, you've got your drone operator, you've got, designated marksman. So like the list kind of starts to add up. One thing I'm always telling people is plan ahead. So you may only have 6 guys right now, and you're like, we really don't have a need for a designated, drone guy. But what happens when you add, 8 to 10 more guys? Then do you need a drone guy? Where does that fit into what you're doing now? So it's kind of like, do that homework ahead of time. That way when the time comes and you can, spare or, allocate that role, you can roll right into it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's kind of where it's like, your comms dude turns into the drone dude. But if you can differentiate, you should have more than just one drone dude, anyways. Because you're gonna have that operator. They're collecting intel, but who are they passing that intel to? Who's gonna action that stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Having those systems in place to be able to spread that division of labor.
Yeah, and depending on, how big of a group you're talking, that will definitely, have an impact on how, like, significant your comms plan is. So, your group may be so big that your comms guy can't also be the drones guy. It's just not possible between, handling the handheld radios, probably managing some sort of HF network. You may have tablets into the game at some point. Like, depending on what kind of comms plan setup you've got, it can become a very intense role.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So back to the the drone operator. Let's start with just like the squad size elements. Drone operator. What are some things somebody should consider when it comes to their loadout if they're that small unit drone operator? We're talking something like the Mini. Small quads, something that are maneuverable. Not range isn't too severe. Small backpack drones. What are some things that guys should consider carrying outside of just their drone?
So it comes back to comms. They, I think Chris Rance was talking about his train up, but like being able to communicate what you see. Ideally, if you're running a squad and you're running it, like a conventional military squad, then you guys would be co-located. But a lot of organizations may not have that luxury, so comms is going to be huge. Being able to identify what you see. I'm trying to get personally away from phones, but I was gonna say having an OTG receiver. That way, other guys could pull if it's analog video feed, they'd be able to pull that. Or if they had ATAC, if you had air gapped ATAC, then you'd be able to pull that drone feed and push it through ATAC. Because you're probably gonna have data. I'm assuming if you had an ATAC system set up.
Now I'm not overly familiar with ATAC just because I've never been on the Android side of things. Are you able to air gap? You're able to air gap the ATAC system, or the devices I guess the system is running off of.
Yeah, it'd be the systems, and I know I'm always back and forth whether or not I even want to trust it because it's just ATAC in itself. I've heard there's a lot of security concerns with it. But yeah, it's the devices, air gapping the devices, and trying to close that off as much as possible. But then obviously, as soon as you've got any receivers or transmitters or anything, it's hard to secure those.
I was gonna say if you're running a network that's exchanging your data to some degree, I mean you're not really air gapped at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Like as soon as you're using it to connect with someone else, you've lost it.
Now, one thing you could do as far as being able to hand off drone footage or pictures that you might have taken to the field back to some sort of S2 or headquarters elements. I've talked about it with Matthew from Tactical Comms and Wyoming Survival. There are certain HF programs that you can utilize through like your DigiRig and stuff where you can send files. I don't know if you could send videos, but I know you can send like photos that are in documents. So that is one option of doing it. And you can do it securely if you have the know-how. So potentially HF could be your friend as far as exchanging the data side of that.
Yeah, so if you had HF and you're running digital, then it's assumed that you have a computer, And then the HD0 goggles that I have, it has a micro SD card that saves. You can have it save every video. As soon as like a drone powers up and it starts receiving video, it'll start recording. And so you can take those files and like what you're saying, theoretically, it doesn't even have to be the videos. It could just be screenshots as well. Just cropping, getting those screenshots and then sending it via HF to confirm stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely, it's like all of the different comps projects we're all doing right now, and drone projects at this point, because drones are becoming a more prevalent part of the conversation, is we're trying to do, it's almost like we're all trying to do something in a conventional manner with unconventional equipment. Like we're the first to be doing so many of the stuff that we're all trying to do.
Yeah, it's definitely it's funny how everybody's projects kind of like they collide at some point.
Like I can't remember who it is. They're a newer page or a newer company. I think it's like like One Tone Systems, One System. I'm trying to remember the name. They post
1S systems.
Yeah, one S system I think is what it is. Yeah, it's One Tone Systems. They posted that video of the DigiRig cable for the XTS 5000 the other day. So you could use essentially like a field TAC chat in a sense through like VHF. I sent them a message. I was like, yo, I'm working on the man pack around the XTL 5000, which has much greater distance and power capabilities. Anyway, you can make an XTL cable for that. So it's really interesting to see how all of our projects kind of like eventually just bounce off of each other.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's and it's great having that network of people, and it's great people popping in the DMs and just like the network, being able to talk to people and bounce ideas. And then there's been so many times somebody brings something up and I'm like, oh, we could use this here and combine this. Yeah, it's good.
Do you foresee in the future there being drone classes, kind of similar to how like Mojave Repeater does his kind of like traveling comms class, or like anything like that? Do you foresee drone classes being a thing in the future?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Some of the people I've talked to, I don't understand why there isn't. I talked to some people about, if you could start up a hobby store, and so like, I asked a hobby store once why they weren't selling FPV drone stuff, and they were like, "Yeah, well, technology changes so much," and I was like, "Dude, that's the reason you sell drone stuff, is because the technology changes so much that people are constantly upgrading." So not only that, but hobby stores don't want anything to do with it, but then also like, dude, you could have a workshop and teach people how to build their FPV drone, kind of like building their computer or something for Micro Center. You can show somebody how to build their drone, and then, oh, by the way, after that, you can teach them how to fly it and program it and the different things you can do with it, in Betaflight or iNav or RD whatever. Like, there's so much customization that you can do. I don't understand, because there's definitely a need for it, definitely money to be had. If you could do a workshop and just do a drone building session, like, it'd be cool. I do so like, there's stuff online though. If you go Joshua Bardwell, he's like the FPV freestyle drone guru, and Chris Rance has posted about him, his kit, because I'm not gonna say it's a good kit, it's a starter drone, but he has the videos. He has a 4-part series video on putting this drone together, like everything you could ever need. So like, if you buy the kit, you watch the YouTube video, you can build your own drone, and get that class for free, basically, at the cost of the drone. But I mean, that, to me, the value there is insane, because you're just paying for the drone, which you're buying a drone anyways, and then he walks you through how to set it up, just all that stuff. And I'm all about free, so that's money. I think they, Part 107 is decent. I think it'd be good to learn, but I also think that there's a lot of FAA stuff. So,
and that was gonna be one of my next questions: is where does the FAA come into all of this?
Yeah, they do come into a lot of it. I've been posting about remote ID. That's starting to become a thing. That'll happen in September.
What is remote ID?
So the FAA wants basically all drones over 250 grams to be able to be seen by anyone. Right, like right now, airports, it's no issue. Most airports have a drone viewing system. They know exactly when a DJI powers up, they can see it. But this is for the common person, the common Karen that doesn't like you flying in the park or whatever. She can see your drone and see where you're at, and then come harass you about it. But that's basically remote ID in a nutshell, and it's dumb for a lot of reasons. The biggest reason I hate it is because it's just added weight for no reason, and it's more just like a security risk. I have goggles on when I'm flying, so I can't, like, somebody's gonna have to deal with this Karen as she comes over and gets mad about people flying in a public place or whatever. But yeah, so remote ID, and then FAA, obviously they have the Part 107, but they also have rules on how you're supposed to fly your drone. What I do to like find a spot and do it legally to fly is I go like the Onyx Hunt app, or whatever, finding BLM land, and then using ATAC. ATAC I actually do use, but not for like comms or anything. I use the NOAA maps and then figure out where the restricted airspace is, so I can not fly in it, and make sure that I avoid all that, and just find open airspace. But
Is
other than that, oh, what's up?
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say other than that, like, and I don't think people would harass you if as long as you're not flying next to an airport, you're good.
Yeah. Do you foresee the FAA pushing more regulation on the drones, like almost to the point where it's like register your drones or die?
Yeah, I mean, so you're supposed to if you're supposed to register every drone, have a serial number on your drone somewhere that's visible, and I think the registration is like $10. So you're supposed to do all that. You're supposed to have a spotter every time you fly, watching, line of sight. It never leaves line of sight, whatever. There's like a lot of rules that you're supposed to be doing. The FCC, like, you're supposed to have a ham license if you're transmitting video. Like, I transmit at like 1 watt, so my video, I'm supposed to have a ham license to be able to do it. It's just, yeah, it's already there, but yeah, it's just ridiculous.
I got you. What type of security concerns are you looking at as far as like utilizing the drone, other than of course like something like somebody following back your drone? I'm talking about the more technical side. Are there backdoors into your drone feed?
So DJI is actually really the most secure video feed, analog being just in the open. But DJI, you at least have to bind the goggles. HD0 and Walksnail, if you have those same digital systems and you tune it to those frequencies, you can just see what is being shown, which is good if you're trying to share video. And so if you have two dudes have the same HD0 system, they could both see the HD0 as it's flying, or the HD0 video as it's flying.
But there's no way to potentially pick up on some sort of signal from the drone. I'm trying to think
Well,
of this in like the traditional comms perspective.
yeah, and you 100% can. Like, so my HD0 headset, I have an analog adapter so that I can view analog video, but with that, I have a spectrum analyzer. And a lot of the radios have a 2.4 gigahertz spectrum analyzer as well in the radio. So, what you can do is if you had a directional headset, like completely directional, you'd be able to look, or sorry, if you had directional antennas on your analog receiver, then using the spectrum analyzer, you'd be able to see everything that is 5.8 gigahertz that's around you. And like, Wi-Fi interferes with that a lot, but let's say you're out in the woods, there's not going to be any 5G out there. So you pick up any signal, you start turning your head with the spectrum analyzer, and you'd be able to hone in on a direction of where that is coming from. And so 5G, that would be the drone video. So you'd be able to see where the drone is, but then with a 2.4 gigahertz spectrum analyzer, you'd be able to see the drone, the operator.
Gotcha. I guess there's always, I guess if there's technology, there's of course is always a weakness to that technology.
Yeah, definitely.
As far as I would say like aftermarket considerations or accessories, whether that be payload systems, IR or thermal cameras potentially, like anything like that, what would you say some of the more beneficial and realistic aftermarket type purchases there would be?
Yeah, so if you had like a DJI Parrot or Autel, I think Wyoming Survival he had, and SoCal Off Grid as well, they had the key fob droppers. So, if you were delivering, if you needed to drop something off using that, um, Axon 4X0, and then he has a dropper as well, kind of like a wiggle dropper. So if your drone wiggles a lot, it'll drop off, but it's not reliant on the key fob system. So like the key fob dropper, that's going to be your range limiter, just because it's pretty weak. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that, and then FPV drone specifically, you're gonna crash a lot. So like, I wouldn't say a 3D printer is necessary, but if you don't have one, then I would recommend buying a lot of TPU, like ARM, protective parts.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy, so like my Recon 3.5 drone has GPS on the back, and you can buy GPS after the fact, attach that, and you can have latitude longitude in your video display. So if you need GPS, then that would be a way to do it. Oh, and like if you're flying FPV freestyle drones, a lot of people fly lipos, and those are super fun. But the lithium ion batteries, those will give you like 25 minutes of flight, and you actually, like, I get tired flying those battery packs because you're flying for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, Lion packs for sure. I'm trying to think what else. You really just like find a drone that fits your needs. Do you need prop guards or not? That's added weight, but if you're flying in proximity to a lot of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
might be needed. Are you gonna mount a GoPro? I have a problem with removable media because it can be compromised. So if you have a GoPro that's recording, then if you crash and somebody gets a hold of that removable media, then they have access to all of it.
That's a valid
Um,
concern.
Yeah, so yeah, and like maybe you do need the GoPro, but I personally don't fly it, but just because it's added weight.
Mm-hmm. And the GoPros aren't light, that's for sure.
Oh no, dude. And like even if you can get a bare bones newer GoPro. I fly old school. I have a GoPro Hero Session 5 from like 2017, which is great. But yeah, like I don't even bother anymore. Trying to think what else.
Is the thought of thermal or IR an aftermarket possibility, or is that kind of one of those things where when you buy your drone, you need to have that in mind and buy it with it?
So I'm thinking the FPV route. I think 556 NATO Sims on Instagram, he sent me something about Foxier coming out with a thermal camera, and I haven't seen much from it. That would be dope if they came out with it. Not sure how it would work with the video transmitter, if you'd have to buy a separate video transmitter or what. But that would be good. I do have to recommend Walksnail. Their newer cameras are super low light, and I know a lot. Some people back in the day were building their own digital night vision using analog cameras. But if you could get your hands on the Walksnail cameras, like low light but Walksnail HD quality video, like that is definite. That's as close as you're going to get to a low cost IR like night vision platform.
Interesting. I definitely think I would probably say thermal more than night vision would be beneficial to the drone. I don't know how beneficial night vision truly would be to the drone, because you really can't pick out the fine, minute details you're kind of looking for when you're under night vision.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially if you're 500 feet in the air.
Yeah, well, and that's where, because with the FPV drone flying Walksnail, that's where you can use that FPV drone to fly Nap of the Earth, get a little bit closer. And Walksnail having the low light camera, night is half of all time. You'd be able to use it at night, and you wouldn't just be limited to daytime. Um, like I definitely agree with you there. Like thermal, I want to say the camera was like $500, but I'd be interested to see how much it actually, when it releases, how much it would be, because
Mhm.
that's insane.
That's 500 to like buy it and then put it on your drone.
Yeah, what I saw was just the camera, like just the sensor.
Hmm.
So that doesn't include the video transmitter or it. I don't know how exactly. I'm not sure how exactly it would work because you. I'm assuming there's no way you could just plug that into your flight controller to run it
Hmm.
to the video transmitter either.
Hmm. Interesting. I would imagine as the use of drones, specifically in conventional conflicts, continues to grow, it'll fuel the civilian market as well, and you'll start to see more of that stuff as kind of like a factory layout and not an aftermarket thought, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it a little more plug and play. I think guys have gotten to that in the FPV drone side. You know, being able to just plug motors in, less of a reliable connection, but that plug and play modularity. I mean, if you're burning through motors, uh, you know, it makes maintenance a whole lot easier.
Does the conventional side, as far as like the smaller unit drones, do those come with any thermal or night vision capabilities, or are they also limited in that aspect? Not talking about like the big boy drones, but like even like the smaller man deployable ones.
Yeah, I have not seen that yet, uh, but that is kind of where we're headed. And
Hmm.
that's if Foxeer can make a $500 smaller thermal camera, that's definitely going to be a game changer. Is you're just going to see it everywhere. I think the problem with it might be the range, but I'm not a thermal expert either. I don't.
Hmm.
But I know like some of the more enterprise drones, the larger drones, you're going to get better thermal camera out of it.
Hmm.
So you're going to have better zoom and you're going to have better range on that thermal camera as well. That's just kind of like the trade-off.
One last topic I kind of want to talk about here, and I guess it would kind of be the opposite of everything we talked about, and that is anti drone. So, what I don't know if you've put any thought into this realm of the conversation as far as acting against drones, or whether that be through, literally taking them out of the sky, or from the technical side. What kind of thoughts have you put into this part of it?
Yeah, I mean it's tricky, especially for the civilian, just because we're so limited by so many regulations. I will say, jamming observational drones is a way. If you have, it just takes an insane amount of power and directionalization to be able to do that. Um, there's enough standoff for any drones being used for observation that like you're not going to be able to reach out and touch it
Hmm.
with a shotgun, and the shotgun's going to be your best bet. If you're spraying and praying with a rifle, like good luck.
Sure.
Um, yeah, so the observation, um, the one concept I do have that I still haven't tested out because I've gotten there now. I have a drone that I can mess with, but having one drone being able to tackle the other one, like
Mm.
not just like tapping on it like the funny dog fights that we see out of Russia and Ukraine, like DJIs tapping each other or whatever, but like um, a drone with a net on the bottom. And what I'm
Yeah.
thinking is, yeah, so the drone, and it's got to be a like a not a wire, like a fishing line kind of net.
Sure.
Ties up the motors and catches the propellers, and you'd basically be able to catch the drone, and then with the drone, your drone still being attached to the net, be able to control the descent of that drone back to wherever you want it. But I think that would be for counter observation. That'd be the best. That it'd be the most economical because you could shoot a man pads or whatever at it, Carl Gustav or something that's airburst, you could do that, but it's a super cheap drone. Like now it's the economics of it just don't make
Sure.
sense.
I would imagine if you
Um,
took like some 50-pound test fishing line, or maybe even like paracord, and you ran like 12 to 15 strands of like 6 to 8 foot strands off of the bottom of a drone, and then you just flew over top of a drone, if you're able to match its speed, or if it's like stationary like a quad would be, and you just kind of drape that through essentially the propellers of it all, you could really like get that thing hung up, and then like you said, like kind of drag it back to your location, and now you could, commandeer that drone.
yeah, no, my thought is like this Christmas, when the stuff that they wrap the Christmas trees in,
Yeah.
uh, I'm
Oh.
gonna I'll take some of that netting. I'm sure I could find it somewhere, but build that and
Hmm.
kind of put it on the drone. And the reason I like the FPV drone for this is because it can definitely like 10 times outrun any DJI or observational drone. Be able to tackle it, and then the FPV drone, you'd still have the FPV camera to be able to fly it back wherever. Um,
Nice. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Has there been videos of that in like Russia, Ukraine, where all these drones are?
um, yeah, I have not seen that yet. I've seen a lot of dogfighting.
Interesting.
Hey, sorry, just a sec.
You're good. Momentary pause, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. It's been a long ass day. It's been a long ass day. I was hand weeding my cornfield today because the new portion of the field I tilled up was completely overcome with this one very specific weed that grew to like the size of my corn, like 4 or 5 feet tall, and it was like kind of like swallowing up my cornfield, and I was worried about the pollination of the corn, so I had to go through, tear all that up, and then recorded a YouTube video before this. But by the time this podcast episode comes out, you guys are already aware of the YouTube video. So head over to our website, guys. We got the new colors in for the Swift Anglers. You can pre-order those now. They will all be shipped out October 1st at the latest, and that's just me kind of overcompensating. I'm hoping to have them by the beginning of September, and we can get those on the road. So a little over a month. Um, but I'm excited. The next podcast episode that comes out, I'm going to do kind of a ECT and Jeremy life update in a sense. It's weird because I always say like we here at ECT, but really on like the admin side of stuff, like it's just me. I have a bunch of guys that help me with YouTube videos, or like my instructors for the Medical Response 1 or the Defensive Pistol 1 classes. Like there are other guys that kind of make up ECT. Um, as far as like the admin side, like who's managing social media and stuff, it's always just me. I just think it's good to kind of lay off that to have that professional presence in a sense. But yeah, it's been it's been a busy summer. There's definitely going to be a very busy fall to come. Definitely, everyone needs to look into the drone side of things just as much as the comm side. I have personally have not dove into the drone side. I got some local buddies that run like the quadcopter style, the smaller minis. But we're not too serious into the drones yet. There's only so many projects you can tackle at once, unless somebody just has like a hobby out of drones and like that's their passion. Then that's kind of where you are with that. But yeah, the drone side definitely adds a whole new expense to all of this. Um, Even more so than I don't know. I don't know what would be more expensive: is the journey of comms or the journey of um, drones? That's a great question. Not entirely sure. I'm going to give this a brief pause until comms come back. I don't know really where he went.
Yeah.
Kind of a Oh, there he is.
Sorry, dude. Yeah, I didn't know if you were doing like recording an outro or something real quick. So
I did. I kept him busy for a minute, and then just as you came back on, I was like, all right, I'm gonna pause it and we'll see. But no, welcome back.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Sorry about that, dude.
No, you're good. I think that's probably a good point, kind of talking about anti-drone stuff to start wrapping things up. Where can everybody find you to find more drone content, ask drone questions, so on and so forth?
Yeah, so pretty much just Instagram, communications workspace. That's pretty much it. But hit me up in the DMs if you have any questions. People hit me up all the time. Where should I start? Whatever.
Do you ever foresee yourself making a YouTube channel, the anonymous YouTube channel?
Maybe one day.
Maybe.
Think it'd be good to discuss tactics. I think YouTube might not be the platform just based on where it's going. But
I know, it sucks.
oh, dude. But maybe someday.
Yeah. That is a bridge that all of us are going to have to cross one day, is whenever all of these platform options are no longer viable to us. But I appreciate you coming on, man. I appreciate you coming on to talk about drones. I've had quite a few comms guys on recently, but I haven't had anybody come on to talk about drones. So I do very much appreciate you bringing this side of the conversation to us.
Yeah, man. It's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's all I've got. And as always, train hard, train often.
Tell me turn it down and I'ma only turn up louder. Call me what you wanna, but you can't call me no coward. Strength in numbers, we the people, still the ones with power. Fighting fire with fire, time to take back what is ours.